Looking now at tonight's top stories. The Air Force is mourning the loss of 3 men killed when the Iroquois crashed while flying to an Anzac service in Wellington. A 4th man is in hospital. It's another blow for the Air Force, which has suffered 5 deaths in 6 months.
Prime Minister John Key paid tribute to the 3 victims as he joined 7,000 people at the official Anzac service in Gallipoli. And there were record crowds at services here, thousands turning out across the country. A service has been held for the first time in half a century at a tiny community on the Otago Peninsula. 200 people were there as a new memorial was also unveiled in Portobello for the 8 men who died in World War II.
Oh, well, I went to Italy to visit my uncle's grave and I found that, realised they were a long way from home and that we just needed to locally do something to commemorate that.
A memorial's now planned for those killed in World War I. The fight's going on in another South Island community for a postal worker's sacrifice to be recognised. Arthur McKenna was one of 22 killed in 1942 in a massacre by the Japanese in the Pacific. Joy Reid went to the town of Reefton on the west coast to hear more on his story.
A gesture for a young man who, nearly 60 years on, is far from forgotten.
Corporal Arthur McKenna.
86-year-old Edward Hart travelled to Reefton to watch his old community pay tribute to the fallen, including his foster brother Arthur McKenna. McKenna was an unarmed postal worker stationed in the Pacific's Gilbert Islands. His job was to report just how close the Japanese were getting. Instead, he fell victim to them, brutally beheaded along with 21 others.
All of the Coast Watchers were the most bravest people that ever went to war. And each and every one of them should have got a VC because they saved tens of thousands of lives.
Edward Hart says the New Zealand government never warned them of the risks and failed to evacuate them to safety.
The government owes us all an apology. They should never, ever have sent those boys to face the whole of the Japanese army on their own. Never, ever. They can't be forgiven for that.
Reefton locals who served in the wars are remembered on this wall here. But for Arthur McKenna, he's been given hero status and has his own special spot.
His name's also etched in stone.
They matched brutality with gallantry and met their death with fortitude.
And in memories. Joy Reid, One News.
The dawn service at Gallipoli has become something of a rite of passage for young New Zealanders, but it wasn't always so. Heather Duplessis-Allen met 2 men who remember what was almost the last Anzac Day commemoration there.
It's a trip to remember fellow countrymen who fought in a foreign land, men not much older than the backpackers here, 95 years on. But the crowds weren't always at Gallipoli. Back in 1975, Kerry Lee was one of only 4 Kiwis, all soldiers, who turned up for Anzac Day.
We were Kiwis, we were close, we were in Palestine at the time. In fact, there were 6 of us, but the other 2 couldn't get off work.
At the time, our Defence Force had decided that year's commemorations, the 60th, would be the last in Turkey. So the 4 peacekeepers and a busload of Aussies joined a crowd of no more than 200 Turks to remember over 131,000 dead.
That was a bigger crowd than we were getting at home at Anzac ceremonies.
Now, of course, with an increased crowd size, logistical requirements change. Volunteers have packed 12,000 of these care packs to get the crowd through the night. There's 6 kilometres of temporary fencing and, of course, plenty of security. There's plenty of fanfare and dignitaries. But 35 years ago, those 4 Kiwis paid for New Zealand's wreaths with their own money. Eddie Ma also remembers the trip. He gets emotional talking about the crowds.
The number of people show that the significance of those sacrifices is being appreciated.
Great for the Turks, great for us, great for anybody who can get anywhere near being here.
Many in this crowd aren't from near here. They travel from the uttermost ends of the earth to remember fallen Anzacs in the most appropriate place, where they fell. Heather Duplessis-Allen, One News, Gallipoli.
Well, New Zealand's handball team has finally made it to Gallipoli after being delayed for days by Iceland's volcanic ash cloud. It was too late to compete, so instead they had to watch a boisterous Turkish crowd cheer on its team against Australia.
And we've come to come to experience this, and just to show our face that we've actually made it now, and we can at least participate in some of the after tournament celebrations.
Handball's first, but it's hoped the three countries will contest a number of sports at the Gallipoli Centennial commemorations in 5 years' time. Well, now it's time for today's sports. Back to Bernie and Andrew.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, Andrew is here with sport and more sordid details from the Storm saga.
Had to come, didn't they?
It did.
More details revealed today about the under-the-table payments and just who is going to turn up to play the Warriors tonight. We'll take you live to Melbourne next. Also this evening, has the Hurricanes' new Super 14 star come of age?
Only really probably
The refs have had enough in South Africa.
Behave yourself or I'll inject you.
Plus, is this the strike that will win Manchester United the Premiership title in England? We have the latest from the jet sprints and also the big power boats. And turning back the clock, a snooker legend chalks up a massive upset at the World Champs.